What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. It is Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. It is 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, which means it is time for a Blog of the Boys Roundtable. My name is RJ Ochoa. We did not have a live show normally, our normal live show rather, on the channel because the Dallas Cowboys are actually currently practicing in parallel with our Roundtable. They are not watching tonight, which is really offensive to all of us. You can watch this, of course, live with us. You can catch the rewatch. Make sure to subscribe to the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel, or you can listen to the podcast version of the show on the Blog of the Boys Podcast Network. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, leave a rating, and write a review. It would not be a roundtable if I were not joined by the best in the business, going in clockwise order there at the 12 midnight position. The one and only, the OG. You read him and hear him all over Blog of the Boys. It is Tom Ryle, top right corner, coming in from, I don't know exactly where his country is located on the globe, maybe the top right. Well, it's somebody's top right. All the way from Scotland, the one and only Paul Stewart. Paul, thank you so much for being here on what is a late time slot for you in your native land. Underneath Paul in our Brady Bunch window setup, all the way up in the top left quadrant of these United States, it is Danny Phantom. Dan, nice hat selection. You look like Jason Garrett in his youthful days here on the Roundtable. The 6 o'clock position here today is Brandon Clements, one of our newer writers at Blog of the Boys. Brandon has fought the internet gremlins before. He has seemingly come out very successful from the very beginning here on tonight's show. And finally with us, rounding out the circular clockwise motion, you know him, you love him, the true Emperor of Darkness. What was the name, Mark Lane? Back in the day, was it the Prince of Darkness? I've long forgotten at this point in time. I know that's a bit of a throwback for you.
Yeah, it was Marcus Aurelius Maximus. So yeah.
Oh, I massively undersold that. I cannot believe that I did not remember that off the top of my head. Tom, the Dallas Cowboys got rid of 5 players today. That is how we start. They are currently practicing. So, again, it will be a bit of a unique show. We'll try to get some clips that are tweeted from the practice happening now live at the Star in Frisco. But the 5 decisions that the Cowboys have made today, Tom, they have moved on from Lareem Hairulahu, effectively cementing Brett Maher as the kicker, at least for now. Jaquari Roberson, one of the wide receivers on this team, has met the Turk. Quandre Mosley on the other side of the ball, Christian Sam as well, and Jeremy Sprinkle, the veteran tight end, opening the door for Peyton Hendershot. Tom, your immediate takeaways?
Not any real surprises. I was a little bit expecting them to wait a while before they made the kicker decision. Apparently they think they've seen enough already, or they're desperate to get some more guys in for tryouts, one or the other. I know that you love how they've handled the kicker situation since day one, RJ. The decision on Sprinkle was interesting, although, since it was an injury thing, maybe they felt it was time to go so they could make sure they were getting a good look at Hendershot. He's the guy that it's big news for, because I think that pretty much gives him a way to really challenge for the tight end 3, and maybe they'll carry 4 and he makes the squad. So good for him. The others were no surprises at all. So now we wait and we see with the Friday night 60-minute audition for practice squads coming up.
Dan, were there any cuts today that left you with a what is the phrase, a crack in your jaw or whatever? I have no idea. Oh my gosh, I just saw that Dak Prescott tweeted about Matthew Berry. Man, Matthew Berry's really on the come up here this time of year. But Dan, any roster cuts today upset you greatly?
No, nothing upset me. I think I was a little bit surprised actually by Quandre Mosley, because I thought he played better than Nashawn Wright. Not that means anything, but I was thinking I'd like to see a little more of him in that final preseason game. I thought he made some plays. A lot of these other guys, their snap counts, you can almost tell that, Jaquari Robertson, we saw that coming. I think Christian Sam didn't even play last time, and I think we all know that Jeremy Sprinkle wasn't going to make the team unless the Cowboys end up going long at tight end, because we're all impressed with Jake Ferguson. I mean, we all can say that. So no, I mean, and then of course, Hairulahu, I think that I don't know. I thought it was. I agree. I figured that would come later, but I don't even know how to feel about the kicking situation. So I feel fine. No big surprises.
Mark.
Yeah, for me, I talked with Eric Galco from the Shrine Bowl about some of the Cowboys undrafted free agents, and he was really high on Peyton Hendershot going back to May and thought that he could challenge for a roster spot. So these developments with Jeremy Sprinkle, I think, kind of track with the youth infusion that was placed at the tight end position, more so with the drafting of Jake Ferguson. But with the kicking situation, I thought they would let that play out a few more weeks. I didn't think that they would just make the decision now and go with Brett Maher. I have to think, although Mike McCarthy was high on Brett Maher in his presser today, I have to think that the personnel department has their eyes on some kickers in other battles, on other rosters, wondering if they can get them because, everybody's got a practice leg for their old kicker. Someone's going to do the kickoffs in the preseason games and so forth. And I wonder if they're looking at one of those young guys. But, I'll have more thoughts on the kicking situation later. But these cuts, I think, are none too surprising. I think the big surprises will obviously be when they trim down to 53, 164 hours from now.
Interesting. Great way to mark the time there, Mark. We're all counting down the Helga Pataki style with the 164-hour mark. The Dallas Cowboys are practicing currently, as mentioned. My attention is all over the place, so a big shout out. We're not doing the normal roundtable point system. I have awarded all 5 of my cohorts the dual and roundtable champions all together. Cavante Turpin is in the mix currently at Cowboys practice, getting work at wide receiver. Paul, are you a fan of this? Are you jealous on behalf of Tony Pollard? Do you think that this is something that we're actually going to see over and over and over this season, or do you think this is just kind of a training camp myth?
I think it's caught everybody by surprise, to be honest. Like, what more that Turpin can actually do, like bring more to the squad. I mean, we know what he can do in special teams, but I don't see it being more like it's taking anything away from Pollard at all. But I think it's just going to give more Kellen more options how to utilize his offense more than anything.
Brandon, do you agree, or do you think that Cavante Turpin could eat into the minuscule slice of pie that is afforded to Tony Pollard?
I think he could. I think Tony Pollard's got a solid role going forward for the season. But Cavante has shown enough flash. I mean, he is kind of a diminutive guy, but he's so quick. So I do feel there's going to be enough gadget plays to go around. Maybe you'll actually see both of them on the field. I would actually like to see them do, something, both of them in the slot on each side of the field and just, use their speed and cross up defenders and just have fun with it. I think Dak would have a lot of fun throwing those two because they're going to be a lot of yak for him. Even if they could turn a 5-yard pass to an 80-yard touchdown. So both those guys on the field at the same time would be something I'd like to see.
Tom, do you believe that the Cowboys can effectively utilize Cavante Turpin and Tony Pollard, or have you been burned too many times before?
I certainly hope they can use him. I'm encouraged that they look to be working Turpin, more as a conventional wide receiver than just a jet sweep guy, because I think that makes him a lot more distracting to the defense, gives them a lot more options. And I was just watching Dak getting a completion to Dalton Schultz. So, he's going from the big to the small with his targets out there in practice. I think Turpin may actually wind up moving up the wide receiver charts. That guy's got so much speed, such a natural evasiveness. I don't want to get too worked up about a guy that was signed that way after not being in the NFL for 4 years, but there's just so much popping up with him. You have to be at least intrigued.
Dan, you are, I wouldn't say an optimist, but you are somebody who affords the benefit of the doubt to people. It's one of the more beautiful qualities of your bright, shining personality. You're a beautiful soul, Danny Phantom. Jesse McCartney wrote the song about you, actually. I'll put this question to you. Johnny Boy RN says, Pollard has been a misused weapon during his tenure. Why would we expect that Turpin will be used any differently?
That's a great question, and I think that we shouldn't. I don't think
I'm gonna tell Jesse.
I mean, let's just be real. I mean, it's possible it happens, but I think for that to happen, what needs to happen is in the limited opportunities that Turpin's going to see in the offense. I think he's going to have to end up breaking one early for him to like say, "Hey, looky here, you better give me the ball." Because if that does not happen, then I think it's end up going to be he's just going to be, not used as much. And you have to look at this too. If we think they're going to keep the receivers we think they're going to keep, there's a lot of targets. If you go down the list of, with CD and Schultz and all these players, it takes a while before you get down to Turpin. And like, where are these touches going to come from? So I think, I don't know. I think it honestly could be like he could get as many touches as Jordan Lewis did back whenever he was getting.
Wow, Dan, I hadn't thought about that in a while. That the Cowboys, we've thrown out a lot of names like Lucky Whitehead, Lance Dunbar, but you're right. Jordan Lewis did get now, interestingly enough, the other number 2 to Cavante Turpin. So I wonder who's going to win that out. Mark, how much do you trust the Cowboys? Are you with Dan? Are you experiencing some trepidation that hey, look, I mean, We've seen this before, and like beyond the fact that maybe we don't even trust them, like there is the fact that Tom mentioned, like where everyone like this insane amount of hype has just all of a sudden blossomed out of nowhere from somebody that no NFL team deemed worthy of a roster spot when training camps began.
I think that Turpin's role is more so to take away Tony Pollard's kickoff return responsibilities and CD Lamb's punt return responsibilities, more so to solidify your punt returner because Cedric Wilson, who was on punt returns, is now in Miami. So I think that that's his main role on this roster, and everything else is just kind of the gravy and the excitement that everybody turns to. Kellen Moore did say on August the 3rd, back in Oxnard, he said about Turpin, quote, "We'll be able to find him a role on the offensive side just to use him in space, give him the ball," things he did really, really well in the USFL and certainly at TCU as well, unquote. So you only get so many offensive snaps in a game, so there may not be the opportunity to really make it Turpin time. So if you're looking for Turpin time, I think it's going to be on special teams where he's also displayed really good judgment in terms of protecting field position and also securing the football. That's really where Cavante Turpin's value is to the roster.
Paul, I want to throw out one more name just to kind of, I think we're all kind of united in this devil's advocate approach. Danny, again, if there were points tonight, you would have earned a lot for the Jordan Lewis callback. That was a great moment, Danny, but too bad. It was all in vain. But that being said, Donnie brings up Tavon Austin's name. We have seen a number of players failed to be utilized. In fact, he was somebody who the Cowboys hyped up as this web back and things like that, and it didn't happen. It didn't get off the ground. I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think any of us would agree that all of this has seemingly happened in the Zeke Elliott era. They just, to Mark's point, they just want to divide the touches in a very specific way. So are you experiencing any sort of emotional kind of conflict within yourself where you're not allowing yourself to believe in Cavante Turpin as this weapon on offense because of the precedent that we've seen before?
Yeah, I understand that. It kind of reminds me of the whole situation with we had with Ryan Switzer as well for special teams as well. Like that's an name you could probably throw in the book as well. But yeah, yeah, I don't really have much else to kind of add on top. You kind of really more or less answered the question for me there, RJ. But yeah.
Well, then let's segue to something you just brought up in the chat, Paul. Matt Waletzko, rookie 5th round pick by the Cowboys. Again, this is just a unique roundtable in that we have things kind of developing while we're on. But rookie Matt Waletzko back practicing for the first time since July 28th, so almost a month removed from his last practice, which was almost his first practice to begin with in the NFL. The Cowboys, Paul, do not have a viable plan at swing tackle. Technically, this is a step in the right direction. The fact that Waletzko is even available to him, a lot of people kind of thought he might start the season on injured reserve. That's still obviously possible. But I mean, what's I don't know. I was going to ask for a scale or a grade, but like just your thoughts on Matt Waletzko practicing on Tuesday night.
I'm happy he's back, but I'm just curious to know if he's brought back too soon. That's my only concern. Like, is the medicals team done? Like, are they happy with his recovery? Is he all healed up, etc.? So that's what I'm kind of worried because we don't want to be going into like this because Waletzko could be that guy to be that solution for the swing tackle position. It could be that guy, but we just don't know yet. Like, it's just one of those ones we just need to kind of wait and see and how things progress with him. But but it is great to see him getting some reps, getting in a bit of the action. But again, at the same time, I'm just kind of apprehensive about it at the same time. Where is he back too soon? Like, don't want to make the matters worse.
Brandon, how do you feel about Matt Waletzko being back? Does this provide optimism for you, or are you just indifferent? I mean, he's a 5th round pick. I mean, who's basically having his second NFL practice ever on August 23rd.
I'm ever the optimist. I really liked Matt Waletzko coming into the draft. I think he's a very athletic guy. So, I mean, it's been almost a month since he practiced. So I assume at this point he's good to go. I mean, he wouldn't be out there practicing, I don't feel like, if he wasn't able to go. I know he's not. I know he's going to have to eventually get the work done on his shoulder for the injury, but he's going to tough it out. Hopefully he can stick. My hope is to get some actual playing time for him this coming week on the preseason games, and just to see how he does. Because let's be honest, Josh Ball has been a major issue. I would like to see Josh Ball just kind of go through the cracks and get him to hopefully maybe we can get him back on the practice squad. I mean, just based off his performance, I don't see why Dallas couldn't just let him go, and then Josh Ball just magically appears back on the practice squad. But at the same time, the swing tackle dilemma is there's a lot of layers to it. I will tell you this: Matt Farniok, I know he plays the center and the guard positions, and he looked pretty good this past week. So I think having Matt Farniok playing well at that position with Connor McGovern, you kind of have that interior of the line ready to go. So in an instance where Tyler Smith goes down again, you could slide Tyler Smith over to left tackle, put either Farniok or McGovern at the guard spot, and be good to go. And God forbid you have 2 tackles go down, you could slide Tyler Smith to left tackle, and we've seen Zach Martin slide over to right tackle, and then you got the interior, taken care of between Farniok and McGovern, and then you have Bidiash at the center position.
So, segueing just a little bit here, but keeping it on the offensive line, Tom, this one's yours. ESPN's Todd Archer. There are some limitations to what the local beat can tweet out video-wise and whatnot, so we're at the mercy of the mothership. But that they can tweet observations. Tom, ESPN's Todd Archer tweeting just now that Connor McGovern is getting some snaps with the first team at center. He added, why has this not happened earlier? We have seen the Cowboys experiment with Matt Farniok at center before. This I think has been talked about. There was the Connor Williams experiment at center a year ago that did not go well during the preseason. I mean, you can make an argument, I suppose, Tom, that your best 5 are truly Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, Connor McGovern, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele. This seems like I don't want to read too much into it, but this seems like a bad moment for Tyler Biadasz that the Cowboys are, with the first team, willing to try out somebody who they've never had play the center position almost 2 weeks before the regular season begins.
Yeah, and I think it also it has to give you pause, because something that I don't think has been mentioned is Tyler Smith is not practicing today, and there's been no word out as to why. So that would be a huge wrench thrown into the works. I like the idea that they're looking for the best depth they can get. And I will admit that I have been very impressed with the reports I've seen on Connor McGovern all camp long. He seems to have taken a pretty decent stride this year after he struggled so much last year when they tried to go with him. But it makes you have to kind of look at this, and then you look at over what they did with kicker, and you look at how they handled the left tackle situation, and you just wonder if this is all part of a dysfunctional management thing going on.
Dan, the question that I threw to you, you handled well, but you weren't bright, shiny, and positive. So we'll take Tom's kind of negative point and then pair it with Johnny Boy RN's comment, who had the comment that I threw to you, actually. But Johnny Boy RN now saying it smells of a desperate move, talking about moving Connor McGovern to center, at least for the moment, demoting Tyler Biadasz. Do you see that as desperation, Dan? Do you see that as innovation? Does the fact that it's occurring on August 23rd as opposed to July 29th impact your decision? Because if we had seen this, when the Cowboys had first arrived in Oxnard, you can make the argument that, hey, look, it's training camp. We're just starting. We're kind of throwing crap against the wall, seeing what sticks. But right now, you're supposed to be kind of getting ready for the Bucs.
Yeah, honestly, this last 10 minutes of conversation is just going to make me feel really unsettled because all this offensive line talk that it just goes from bad to worse. And I'll say this though, I'm going to spin this positively. Okay, the fact that we are seeing Connor McGovern taking reps at center means that maybe they don't want to start him at left guard at the beginning of the season. And I know that everyone has Tyler Smith penciled in at left guard, and let's certainly hope that's the case. But if you look at things, and he's got great plays on tape, but he also has moments where the mental mistakes where he's a little bit of a liability too. So I wasn't completely sold that he's even going to start at left guard in week 1. But if they're moving McGovern around other spots, that makes me feel a little better about what they're seeing in Tyler Smith. So I don't know. And gosh, I just all this Josh Ball talk and Waletzko stuff, and I'm not excited about Waletzko being back because I'm pulling for the guy and I hope he has great practice and everything. But I hope the Cowboys address this because all these other contingency plans just seem dreadful to me. And as bad as Josh Ball has been, all the non-Josh Ball options are worse. So I don't know. It just frightens me until I see them sign a veteran to bring in. I'm not going to feel better about the offensive line.
Mark, I'm sure you have a quote from somebody at some point talking about Connor McGovern playing center. But do you view this as desperation? Because it's, to Dan's point, it's difficult to find a configuration of the offensive line that isn't the one that we've just kind of assumed to be the starting one this entire time. It's difficult to find a different configuration that we don't have a huge problem with. Like, that there's some sort of problem that in, any configuration that involves Josh Ball, to Dan's point, is terrifying. Any configuration, obviously absent of Tyron Smith is terrifying, regardless of who it is. But this does kind of, I don't know. I'm curious for your take, Mark.
Well, one of the things that Mike McCarthy talks about when it comes to players is really your quarterbacks and your kickers and punters and long snappers. They're your specialists, if you will. Their role on the roster is just kind of one thing. When it comes to the other players, they have to be able to do a multitude of things because you only get 45 game day activations. So what if, let me just throw this out there. What if they're taking a look at Connor McGovern's versatility because they want to know what they have in store, what combination of the line they'll have to jumble together. If he's starting at left guard and something happens to Tyler Biadasz, does it make more sense to have McGovern slide over, or do you just roll with Farniok? The thing with McGovern getting center snaps is, according to an interview he did, with the media on July the 31st, 2021, out in Oxnard, he said that he only practiced center for a practice and a half in his rookie year with the Cowboys. And since then, with Joe Philbin, it's been exclusively guard. So this has been the first time in the Philbin era that
say that again, Mark. Just so we're very clear. Say that again, please.
All right. This is the first time since Joe Philbin's been offensive line coach that Connor McGovern has taken snaps at center. He did in his rookie year for a practice and a half, he said. And then, he got injured and so forth, and that kind of marred his rookie season. But even McGovern playing center is unknown territory, even if you're doing it as kind of like I don't know why, if it's a contingent, they wouldn't do this earlier in training camp, not, a fortnight away from the Bucs.
So, Mark, that quote is from when? I'm sorry?
He said that on July the 31st, 2021, so last training camp.
Right. So, but still, we have no evidence of Connor McGovern being used at center since then. So, it's seemingly just as effective. So, to be clear, so that we fully have our cards out on the table, this is Joe Philbin's third year overseeing the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. So, therefore, Paul, it is Joe Philbin's third year understanding who Connor McGovern is. And so just on a random August evening, I don't know what August evenings are like in Scotland, but they're pretty muggy around here. Joe Philbin just decides, you know what? Now's the time. We're about 1,000 days into this thing, but why, let's just do it now, 2 weeks before the season starts. Did all that information from Mark make you feel better or worse, Paul?
Worse. Definitely worse.
Way to go, Mark.
I'm not a big fan of Joe Philbin in general, personally. I just think he just sometimes just doesn't know who his starting five. Well, you know who your starting five is, but he just doesn't know who his best players available are. And he seems to be trying to find shortcuts left, right, and center. No pun intended with the center position. But with McGovern, he's been with the team, for 4 years now?
This is his fourth year, yeah.
So this is his fourth year, and we still cannot identify what position we can actually keep him there rock solid at. We're like, yeah, it can be utilized in that, but I'd rather have an O-line being like your Zach Martin. He's a right guard only. He doesn't want to be pushed out to tackle. He doesn't want to be playing on the left-hand side. He wants to stick to right guard. I'd rather have that. Like, guys are more solidified in that one position and one position only, because that means you have that proper structure. You know your playbook inside out, left, right. Like, if you're going in multiple positions, you need to know what pulls you're doing for this play, etc. It's more to take in. Like, the less is more approach is probably best for an O-line. If you have the less things to think about, the more success you're going to have being an offensive lineman.
Tom, Paul brought it up. Or sort of brought it up, but it kind of gets forgotten that the Cowboys not only couldn't make up their mind as far as their offensive line configuration last year, game to game, they couldn't do it within games. I mean, we saw them make adjustments during games, and I think we kind of, there was a lot of gunk in last season that we've kind of tried to, sort of wipe away from our memories. But this is kind of that thing rearing its ugly head here, and none of us are trying to overreact, but it is just such a random data point to now all of a sudden exist that it can't help but conjure memories of that, can it, Tom?
Yeah. As for the whole team, you seem to find yourself doubting just what is the plan. They have a plan.
Tom, I don't know. Is that my internet or Tom's? Is anybody hearing Tom?
I'm having issues too.
Okay. So that was really dramatic. I don't know what's going on. Dan, that's your question now that Tom failed.
Yeah, I'm sure Tom was going to say something great, so it's going to be hard to top that. You know what? I don't know what to think of Philbin, and I was really excited his first year, and I thought that the Cowboys, they were hit hard with injuries, and I thought he worked wonders with those guys because Brandon Knight and Terrence Steele.
Look what he did with and Terrence Steele.
Yeah.
To your good point. Yeah.
It was fantastic. And then of course last year I felt like it was almost the opposite. It's like we had an abundance of depth, and then they didn't know what to do. And it's almost like each week they were like drawing names out of a hat. Who's playing? Idle hands,
Danny.
And then guys are playing fullback. They're running routes. I mean, it's like they're all over the place, and they bench this guy. No, he's terrible. So then back to this guy. So, I mean, it's like they don't really have a good idea of their line situation. And I mean, I didn't have a good idea either. It was just crazy. So I don't know what to think about Philbin, and that's why I'm super paranoid right now entering year 3 of him, and we don't got a swing tackle. And so I don't know. I'm hopeful. He's been a good coach, for many years, and he took over for McCarthy when he got fired in Green Bay, and I mean, but I don't know. I'm a little worried.
You use the word worried, Tom. I'm setting you up for a question. As soon as I can type it out, so I can build up the drama. By the way, Tom, I don't know if you know this or not. You're well, actually, before we go there, Paul, you had a Joe Philbin point you wanted to get to very quickly.
Yeah,
you stole Tom's thunder.
Yeah, just to kind of add on what Dan was saying there. So I just want to remind people, it's like, see, if Kellen Moore was not our offensive coordinator, Joe Philbin would have been. That's people would tend to forget that. Like, because when you're talking about it, like Philbin was like OC for that, Mike McCarthy all those years, and nearly every job before that, it was pretty much a 1-year wonder being an O-line coach or an OC from college years, from team to team to team to team. But Green Bay was his longest ever tenure as a coach. Never seen that in Dallas now, but it's just like, is he really that good if he's going from job to job? So I'm just kind of wondering, it's like, would you rather have him, like, just remembering, like, he would have been our OC if Mike McCarthy really had everything his way?
That's fair to wonder. I mean, at this point, it's like, my long worry, and Tom, I'm coming to you right now, but my long worry has been that this season's not going to go well, that the offense is going to fall flat for reasons that we're kind of outlining here, and a reason that I'm about to set Tom up with, but that Mike McCarthy's going to, in the offseason, do some interview on the Rich Eisen show, whatever, like last year, and be like, well, I never got a chance to run my offense. I had to run Kellen Moore's offense the moment I got to Dallas, and that's going to be the scapegoat for this or whatever. Tom, you had an internet issue. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, or if you thought it was us. But it was on your end. You sounded very funny. Alex wants to say that you sounded like you were transforming into Optimus Prime. I think that's a fair characterization, honestly, of what the noise was like. But glad you're live and glad you're stable here as far as your connection is concerned. At the beginning of practice, right before we started again, Jalen Tolbert had another rough moment. Now, we have seen not the most wonderful things from Tolbert. Had the 4th down drop against the Broncos 2 weeks ago. Had the bad moment against the Chargers. Didn't know where his feet was. Didn't get down for the touchdown. But right now, actually, as I said this question, Jalen Tolbert's having some successes. Seen some tweets from David Hellman of Fox Sports. Skywalker still of A to Z Sports. But so are you worried? Like, would a good practice calm those nerves? Like, do you feel worried about Jalen Tolbert? Because there's a lot riding on him ascending to legitimate wide receiverness.
I'm just going to say that I'm hoping that if he stumbles, some of the others stand up. And I think with Cindy
all the options that they have, right?
Yeah, but there's some people having some great camps. Admittedly, it's just camps, but you've got other people. I hope they don't have to rely completely on Jalen Tolbert to be wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, and we're just going to have to find out. But as you said, it is nice that he's had some successful plays. And, since we're being very negative, a couple things that are happening that are good. The Dak to CD connection is alive, well, and clicking out there. And Micah Parsons is just a beast. And that's just, a couple of things that have been coming out of this practice. So it's not all doom and gloom. And practices are sometimes to try to find out what's working, what's not working. And you're trying to give people a chance to work on any issues they have and hopefully be better when the live game starts.
Well, first of all, shout out to us, because the moment, Paul, you noted this in the chat, the moment that we brought up this question about Jalen Tolbert, it seemingly inspired him, and he's now on fire in Cowboys practice. So if anybody's watching or listening to this late, it was just a funny coincidence of timing. But that being said, Brandon, along these lines, the reason this is important, and I think the reason that this question is fair, is the joke I made to Tom. There are not a lot of options. We have a comment from Johnny Boy RN that says, what a shocker that a 3rd-round receiver is playing like a rookie. You would think Jamar Chases would be found everywhere. The problem is that the Cowboys put an awful amount of stock into Jalen Tolbert. I mean, they themselves, by the decisions they made, kind of exacerbated the pressure that now exists on Jalen Tolbert's shoulders. So if he's not good, you can't necessarily, within the confines of this team as a whole, give him the same benefit that you would give a normal 3rd-round rookie. He has to come in and contribute right away.
Yeah, he definitely does at this point, especially with the injuries to James Washington and Michael Gallup is still working his way back. I mean, we don't know exactly when Gallup's going to play. He could be out the first month of September. So from my perspective, I think Dak is going to lean heavily on CeeDee Lamb. I think he's going to lean heavily on Dalton Schultz, and I think we're going to see a lot of Zeke and we're going to see a lot of Tony Pollard. But I do think Jalen Tolbert's going to have ups and downs, as any rookie does, regardless of what draft round you're in the draft. It doesn't matter if you're a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 7th rounder. If you're a rookie, I expect rookies to make some mental errors because coming from the college game to the pro game is a little bit different. So Jalen Tolbert, I think, will be fine overall. I think he's going to have a fine season, but Dak will find other targets, and I think Jake Ferguson's looking great as well. So there's plenty of options out there, even if our quote unquote number 2 receiver at this point has a few bumps and bruises along the way.
Well, once again, shout out to us for inspiring Jalen Tolbert. Mark, Tuesday's roster cuts included the Reem Hyrule, Ja'Cory Robertson, Quandre Mosley, Christian Sam, and Jeremy Sprinkle. But absent among the Dallas Cowboys transactions, Brandon was mentioning Michael Gallup. Was Michael Gallup being placed on the reserve PUP list? Do you read anything into that, Mark? Because, we saw some teams around the NFL do that today. It's one example. The Commanders placed Chase Young on that list. That automatically takes him out the first 4 games of the season, which does include the Week 4 contest at AT&T Stadium against the Cowboys. Do you feel like, Mark, the Cowboys not giving Gallup that designation today is, in fact, an indication that he could be back by Week 2, Week 3, or Week 4? Or is it a matter of, well, it doesn't really mean anything. We're fine moving on from the players that we said goodbye to. Maybe we still wind up putting Gallup on that list anyway.
I'm pretty sure that they don't have to put him on the PUP list until they cut down to 53, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the final one. Okay. All right. So that's really what you read into it, is that Mike McCarthy talked about how he's in the 4th quarter of his rehab, and there's some optimism. Britt Brown feels good about him, the trainers, but they're waiting to see. So to me, I don't really look at it as a positive or a negative, because if he comes through the 53-man roster designation and they do not put him on the PUP list, then that's good news. But until then, that's like the PUP list that I'm worried about, is what you have to do to massage that 53-man roster.
Well said. Dan, do you read anything into the Gallup thing? Do you have a hard take on the Tolbert thing? We've cruised through a few things since we came back to you.
Yeah, I don't read anything to the Gallup thing. I figure it's going to be close whether it's a 4-game miss or not. So I don't think it's going to bother me either way. I don't really care too much about how they designate him right now. The Tolbert thing, I do have thoughts on. I think he is overly scrutinized, to be honest. I think that he was having a great camp, doing really
There's
well.
The person Jesse McCartney wrote that song about, by the way.
I mean, I think what's really important is seeing how he's doing the chemistry with Prescott. That's really all that matters. I don't care about what's going on with the other guys, but he's having a great camp, and then people see him in preseason games and he's not making the plays that we're hoping for. But neither is Dennis Houston, because same kind of situations. And now he's back in camp making plays, doing Jalen Tolbert things. So I think when you get,
go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
No, I think that I think it's like Brandon was saying, we definitely need to temper our expectation. He is a rookie. He's going to have some growing pains, but my expectations are still pretty high for this guy, and I think that he's going to contribute in this offense. And he's not, obviously there are other targets ahead of him, but I think he's going to make plays in this offense. I'm not worried about Tolbert.
Tom, a tweet a moment ago from BTB alum and friend of the show, Landon McCool, who noted that, and again, it was funny that the fact that Tolbert had success when we started talking about it, but the reason he partly had success is because Dak Prescott's throwing him the ball. The Tolbert that has struggled, at least in the preseason, has not had that luxury. And so Landon's tweet was basically to that effect, saying that, we can kind of conclude that these are Will Grier, Cooper Rush issues. So to that point, Tom, okay, great. We feel awesome about Jalen Tolbert, but we now sort of have concrete proof, if we stretch the word concrete a little bit here, that the backup quarterbacks are literally inhibiting the talent of the offensive players. So, I mean, there's already a strong enough argument against Will Grier and or Cooper Rush, but does that not aid to the fact that the Cowboys sort of need to look elsewhere for a QB2, or are they kind of just stuck here? I mean, because this is such an important position with regards to chemistry and relationships and things like that. Do they just now have to ride with one of these options because they're at the point they're at in the calendar?
First off, can you hear me? Because it just gave me a warning about my mic. Am I good?
We can hear you.
Okay.
I've never heard a warning. We've been using this for years, and that's never happened. So
yeah, I think the plug had just worked loose on it, and I hadn't realized it. I will say that the problem with your backup quarterbacks inhibiting your players is probably common to like 25 to 30 NFL teams every year. The reason they're your backup quarterbacks is that they're not good enough to be starting quarterbacks. So I think that's almost a natural thing that's going to happen. It's why some of the preseason games can look very ragged. Why defenses sometimes look a lot better than the offenses, because your backup quarterbacks just don't have the talent, don't have the ability. So, so yeah, that's I'm not that concerned to hear that. does not mean I'm endorsing Greer or Rush as the backup quarterback. I just like with kicker, I would hope the Cowboys are taking a hard look when the big time cuts start coming and people start hitting the street, because you have to think there's going to be at least one or two better options that land that come loose somewhere. So, we'll just have to see. But the fact that the receivers in practices are having to struggle a little bit when they're dealing with somebody besides Dak Prescott, to me, is just that's the nature of how it goes.
Paul, how do you feel about QB2? Are you like Tom? Are you just kind of indifferent? Are you like, hey, if they're playing, we're screwed anyway? Like, are you passionate about this?
I'm passionate to the extent where, like, yeah, backup quarterbacks tend to be important. Like, I kind of thought we kind of had that when we did have Andy Dalton as our backup, but
well said, 1,000 points.
But if that goes down, like, you can really pretty much kiss your season goodbye. Essentially, that's the way I'm kind of seeing with the Cowboys right now. It's like it's all on Dak. Really, like if you were to have, like, doesn't matter if it's Cooper Rush or Will Greer who's going to be coming in, it's like your expectations are going to be quite low to see any points in the board, really. Like, in fact, well, they'll still score touchdowns depending on who you're playing against, but not as effective as Dak, I don't think.
Dan, what are you surprised we have not talked about yet?
That we have not talked about. Oh, let's see. I'm surprised we haven't talked about the cornerbacks.
Why? Why are you surprised? This is your thing now.
I think that we're going to be, half of us are going to be surprised come roster cuts, depending on which direction they go. I don't think Kelvin Joseph and Nahshon Wright are both going to make the team.
Okay, let's jump off of there. Let me get this up here. Dan, Kelvin Joseph or Nahshon Wright. So who is team Kelvin Joseph? Raise your hand. If you have to pick one, you can only have one of these two, and you can't pick. You literally have to cut one of these two. So who wants Kelvin Joseph on the team of these two? Hands up. Tom, Brandon, Dan are on the wrong team. So those who prefer Nahshon Wright over Kelvin Joseph are obviously me, Mark, and Paul. So Dan, you make the Kelvin case. Mark, you will make the Wright case, and then I will tell everyone who wins. But I'm team Nahshon Wright. So go ahead.
All right, who's starting this?
You are, Dan.
All right.
Way to listen.
So you could tell me how wrong I am. It's just all right. So I mean, I am not really team Kelvin as much as I'm anti Nahshon Wright, and it's painful to say because he's an Oregon State Beaver, and you got to root on your guys, I guess. But he's just terrible. I mean, we've watched him through 2 preseason games, and he has no ability to change direction. He's so lanky, and I mean, I know they value him for his length, and he's really, his strength is when he's able to run downhill and close on receivers, but he's not getting those opportunities. Receivers are getting behind him. He's getting beat. And then the worst part about Nahshon Wright, the absolute worst part about is when he is there to make a play. When he's there to make a play, he doesn't. He's not able to jump. He's just out of balance, or he'll come in a little too early and he gets flagged for a pass interference. So to me, Nahshon Wright would just scare me if we had to throw him out there on the outside and cover. At least with Kelvin Joseph, when he gets beat, he's right there to tackle the guy. He's closer. He can tell, like, he's almost there. He has the athleticism, so to me, I think there's a noticeable difference between the two. And on a person, personal, alumni thing, I'm all over. I'm all for Nahshon Wright, but from a purely talent perspective and what's going to help the team better, no, we got to get rid of it. We got to get rid of Wright.
Mark, tell Dan why he's wrong and why we're the winning team, please.
Well, John Fossil likes Nahshon Wright on special teams. So he's got that going for him, which plays into the versatility that they're looking for when it comes to defensive backs on the roster. Also, I think it'd be easy to hide Nahshon Wright look at what he's been playing with in the preseason. Where's Trayvon Diggs been? Where's been the Micah Parsons factor? Where's Jaron Kearse been on the back end? I think a lot of times if you've got good enough personnel that they can hide some of the deficiencies of a player like Nahshon Wright so that it's not as noticeable. And like I said, when it comes to the two of them, I think that Wright's ability
Mark,
to play
I'm
on
so
special
sorry to interrupt you, but Kelvin Joseph just had an interception at practice.
Well, there you go.
What was it? Was it off?
Perfect timing.
It was pretty good, actually. I got him.
It was. I would say it was underthrown.
Was it from DiNucci?
No, it was Cooper Rush at quarterback. So we are just. What's the opposite of a kiss of death, Mark? Because that's what we are.
Right. Yeah.
Anti-jinxes.
No,
That's
yeah.
not a
It's like
good
the
enough
kiss
name,
of
Tom.
life.
Leave the names to Mark, please. But Mark, you can still finish making the case because you were onto something. Go ahead.
It's over.
Basically, Bones Fossil's going to talk them into saying Nahshon Wright's a better special teams player. I use him. We don't have Cedric Wilson anymore. I need an opposite of C.J. Goodwin. So that's, I think, the case that they'll make to keep Wright over Joseph.
Brandon, make your case, however incorrect it is.
I mean, Calvin Joseph still has more natural ability than Nahshon Wright to cover the receiver. I mean, the issue with Nahshon Wright, which, yes, some of it's technical, but his awareness is awful. I don't know how a 6'4" guy can have so many balls just go over his head. That's what perplexes me. I get that he's a tall guy and he's lanky, so it kind of maybe it's it takes him a little bit longer to kind of move around, but his hips I feel like are just not, he doesn't have quick hips. And again, he's too handsy. He just loses his awareness. I mean, I've seen so many balls that he could easily at least break off or pick off that he's just let go over his head because he doesn't know where the ball is. And then there's a big play down the field. And with Calvin Joseph, I think he showed flashes in that Philadelphia game last year where he looked more like the second round pick that the Cowboys invested in him last year. So I'd bank on Calvin Joseph just because I believe he's a more natural cornerback than Nahshon Wright. And I think the ceiling for Calvin Joseph, in my opinion, is much higher than Nahshon Wright at this stage.
That's well said. I think Tom, Brandon, and Danny were wrong, but whatever. I think you had the benefit of luck happening where Calvin happened to have an interception at the moment, but hey, it is what it is. Tom, I want to ask you a question. I know you've had the stream on in the background, and again, I can't express how unique of a roundtable this has been to have something kind of happening in parallel with us. This does kind of feel like, and I saw Connor Livesey, one of our writers and podcasters, tweeted about Jalen Tolbert having a great practice. Again, bad first step, but then everything else has been great. This kind of feels like like Dak almost like trying to will this into existence, Tom. Like Dak is looking for Tolbert often in this practice. It sort of feels like Dak, and that's a Dak thing. I mean, Dak, this is let me get my guy. He just hit Tolbert again. I mean, this feels very intentional. Maybe that's just me, but I know you've had the stream on in the back. Paul, we'll get your thoughts too.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think you hit the nail on the head. Dak is not just the quarterback; he's the leader of the team, and I think he takes some responsibility for doing what he can to help players advance in their career with the Cowboys. And I think you very much hit it. I think he is looking for Tolbert, trying to get him more involved. I think it's great to get the young guy some more confidence coming in and let him know that he can work with the first stringer as well, because that's what we're looking for him to do. We're not concerned about how well he does in practice with backup quarterbacks. We want to know, what are you going to do when Dak's out there throwing the ball and he needs a completion?
Paul.
Sorry. Yeah,
you should be sorry.
Yep, sorry. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Just how do you read into that the same way, or do you think it's coincidence here? I mean, that Tolbert just happens to be open.
Oh yeah. It's just weird that we're just talking about Tolbert and he's just balling out like in practice right now. Like he's made really good receptions, getting upfield, like going the slant, going the deep route, and yeah, he's looking pretty good in this practice right now, and it's just I think it's kind of caught us all by surprise right now. But I think it just shows the difference when he's with Dak then compared to like Cooper Rush. And I think this is where we're talking about makes our point earlier about our backup quarterback. If that goes down, you're going to get different quality of delivery from the ball to the receivers. So this all plays in a big massive factor here.
Well said. He's working with the backup receivers now. I just targeted Cavante Turpin a moment ago. I have decided in the 11th hour that we will have a BTB roundtable winner. So all of a sudden I'm handing out points in hindsight and whatnot. So be on the lookout for the final 10 minutes. So that being said, Mark, what is one thing you are surprised that we haven't spoken about yet?
I'd say the running back situation. And I mean behind Tolbert and Ezekiel Elliott, because you figure that Ezekiel Elliott, he played injured last year, 2020, he missed time. So he's not exactly getting any more durable as the years go on. So what's that RB3, RB4 can they carry 4 running backs? What kind of roles the third running back going to have? Because there will probably be a game where Tony Pollard's your starting running back, and then whoever's behind him is the guy that's either playing the Zeke role, which will be diminished, according to the game plan, or just someone that's spelling Tony Pollard. So I think that backup running back is something that's not really talked about much.
So along those lines, Johnny Boy RN says Davis looks too good to let go. Obviously, the Cowboys have an issue with Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis. Brandon, I've seen that you said in the chat 4 running backs in your opinion on the 53. Who shares that opinion? Obviously, Brandon does. Who? Just show of hands. Who thinks 4 running backs need to be on this 53-man roster? Tom, that was a meek hand raise, Tom. Optimus Prime is a powerful hand, just to be very clear here so you're aware.
Yeah, but it's not a powerful opinion, because that means you take something away from somewhere else, and those decisions are hard.
Okay, Paul, you nodded in agreement for the podcast audience. Brandon, is the crux of your point that they're just too good to let go, that you want them around for the future? I imagine it is.
Yes, especially Malik Davis. I mean, I think Dowdle, I think he'll be around for a while, but you have to think in the future, because Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott, one of them is going to be gone next year. I feel like Tony Pollard's going to get. I think Tony Pollard's going to get some big money next year, and then maybe Zeke's contract. They're trying to get out of it anyways. So why not have a guy like or 2 guys like Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis? I mean, Malik Davis looks like a bowling pin out there, and he's quicker than that 4.740 that he ran at his pro day. So there's enough there where if you try to sneak him on the practice squad, there is no chance in heck that he's not going to land somewhere, because somebody will take him.
Danny, you haven't said a word, so before I offer my thoughts, you seemingly disagree, like at least based off of implication.
Well, we've all heard that. No chance he makes it, and so we know that that's not always true. And I will say I do agree with Brandon, and Malik is my RB3, and that has more to do with player control than anything else. And well, he's ahead too. I think he looks better. I've seen him also contribute on special teams. I think there's a value in having Malik Davis. Personally, I would keep him on. I would keep him on the 53. Rico is probably gonna make it to the part. I'm not worried about him being taken. I think he'll make it. So I don't think we want to burn a roster spot to go deep at running back. I definitely think. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if we cut them both initially and they both cleared. And
first of all, Cavante Turpin just made an excellent catch. So yeah, if he's not used, it will be sad. Paul, I know you have a close eye on the practice as well, so I know you know what I'm talking about. He looks a little bit winded, but I think, hopefully he's all right. I disagree with all. Well, actually, Mark, so do you think they should carry 3 or 4 running backs? Like, how do you feel about this?
3 running backs, unless that 4th running back has high special teams value, which I don't think they'll have. So 3 running backs.
I don't understand this argument. I think like the one that all of you seem to share. So I feel like Jon Snow, like just taking on the whole army. I understand that we like Rico Dowdle. I understand that we like Malik Davis. I understand we're worried about what happens if Zeke's gone next year, Tony Pollard's gone next year. What happens if they're both gone next year? They found Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis quite easily. Tom, you wrote about this, how that actually highlights how frustrating it is that they have devoted such an incredible amount of resources to Zeke specifically. And so, I mean, look how easy it was. They weren't even trying to find, starting caliber running backs or quality caliber running backs, and they've stumbled their way backwards into 2 of them. So I'm not worried about that at all, even if they do, wind up moving on. I obviously hope that doesn't happen. But, I mean, does anybody share that sentiment? Am I coming out of left field here, or is that practical, just maybe not something that is a cool opinion? Mark?
What's funny is when next year, if they do let both of them go, and then whatever move they make, which will probably be a mid to late round addition, sign a veteran, they'll act like, well, this is how we think you need to go at running back, because at the end of the day, you can find guys and, you just need them to run the ball.
Tom,
so that's what's funny about it.
You were going to say something, Tom.
Yeah. There are other teams out there that have the same thing. They've got their 3rd and 4th string running backs, and everybody's like, "Ooh, how are we going to keep all these guys on the team and everything?" That's why I'm like, I believe it was Dan that says, I don't think you have to worry about these guys getting poked, because running back talent seems to be the easiest thing to find in the NFL.
That's my point.
Positions. Yeah, it's like I just I think they should have running backs available for depth, because we had a problem with Zeke last year. And I hope that they don't go with rolling with Zeke like they did last year, because, well, they didn't really trust what they had behind him. They need to make sure they've got depth on the roster. I think they've got 2 good candidates, and they need to have somebody that can go out there and take that heavy workload that Zeke was still carrying, even though he was playing very limited due to the strain on his tendon.
Okay. What I took away from that is I'm right and you're all wrong. The time has come to award the BTB Roundtable winner. I have been tabulating all of the points in my mind, silently and respectfully. And that being said, with an easy 39 points for Quandre Mosley, Paul Stewart is our BTB Roundtable winner. However, this is a rare Roundtable win. It's a rare Roundtable episode. You get a +1, Paul. Like Jeff Probst often tells people in Survivor, somebody who wins a reward challenge, you get to bring somebody with you. You're going to go eat, pizza and burgers or something like that. You get to bring somebody to the dance with you, Paul. Now, you can ask anybody to make their case to you. You can just do it on your own. It's your thing. But you get a +1 to split today's Roundtable trophy with.
Ooh. I'll go with my man, Tom.
So you're not just going to give it to Tom without even, hearing anybody out.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah. All right. I didn't really realize that was the rule. Sorry.
Tom, how do you feel? You're like a injured player on the Super Bowl winning team. Like, you get the ring, you get the cap and T-shirt and everything. Like, do you feel like it's authentic?
I think it's because my fiance loves his accent, and I'll take
Oh, no. It's nothing to do with that.
That was an awkward moment before the show started that nobody had to hear, thankfully. Wow, Paul, why Tom? So that Mark, Brandon, and Dan will be upset.
I think it was more on the points of the offensive line he made. I felt more quite in sync what he was saying about that, especially with the whole Josh Ball situation and stuff like that, and me being an offensive lineman guy and D-line guy. So it really hit a home run with me. So I completely agree with his points in that.
Brandon, how do you feel? Look, my Roundtable order was objective, point-based, but Paul's was completely subjective. He didn't choose you of his own accord.
That's all right, Paul. I still like you. I like the accent, so I'll give you a pass on this one. Mark,
do you feel slighted in any way, shape, or form?
No, it just means I have to work harder and bring it 167 hours from now, so there's a great opportunity to get better And I think getting denied twice in one night like this really fortifies the resolve I have in self-improvement.
Good luck following that, Dan. But how are you feeling in the wake of losing out not just once but twice on the Roundtable Award?
I'm not feeling good about it, to be honest. I think a line in the sand has been drawn, and I think I'm going to be looking for an opportunity to blindside him. So just be careful now.
I was really hoping that you were going to choose Danny, Paul, if I'm being honest, because he's the only person I know that watches Survivor around here. So he got the reference from Jeff Probst and the loved ones challenges and things like that. So way to not be able to read my mind successfully. Let's see. DJ Dog 31 by the one said like Wentz sitting on the bench while Foles is winning the Super Bowl. So Paul, you are Nick Foles in this case, and Tom, you are Carson Wentz.
Oh, poor Tom.
Yeah, Tom, you have been dubbed Optimus Prime and Carson Wentz on this episode. So, and you got half of the Roundtable win. So, big night for you, Tom Ryle. Congratulations, Paul. As the Roundtable winner, I would like for you to send us out with a tune. Sing us a line of any song, but in the most melodic voice that you possibly can.
Let me see. Can I stop this feeling deep inside of me? Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. There you go.
Holy crap, Michael Bublé just showed up for 5 seconds.